Few figures in modern American history have sparked as much fascination, controversy, and debate as Donald John Trump. Love him or despise him, one thing is undeniable. His story is unlike anything the world has ever witnessed. From the gleaming skyscrapers of New York City to the storied halls of the White House, Trump's journey is one of extraordinary ambition, stunning setbacks, and relentless reinvention. He built a real estate empire, became a television icon, and then did something that shocked the entire world. He became the 45th President of the United States. And if that wasn't enough, decades later, he came back to claim the presidency once more. This is the full, unfiltered story of Donald Trump, a man who turned his name into a global brand, rewrote the rules of American politics, and permanently changed the landscape of the nation he so boldly claimed to want to make great again. To understand Donald Trump, you have to start at the beginning. On June 14, 1946, Donald John Trump was born in Queens, New York, the fourth of 5 children. His father, Fred Trump, was a self-made real estate developer who had built a thriving business, constructing and managing residential properties across Brooklyn and Queens. The family lived in a 23-room mansion in the Jamaica Estates neighborhood, a clear symbol of their prosperity and status. Growing up surrounded by wealth and business conversations, young Donald absorbed his father's relentless work ethic and sharp eye for opportunity. Fred Trump was not just a provider, but a mentor, often taking Donald to construction sites and teaching him the fundamentals of the real estate world firsthand. This privileged yet demanding environment instilled in Donald an intense drive to succeed, compete, and always aim bigger than those around him, traits that would define his entire life ahead. Trump's educational journey played a crucial role in shaping the man he would become. As a teenager, his parents enrolled him at the New York Military Academy in 1959, where he spent several formative years developing discipline, structure, and early leadership qualities. The rigorous environment pushed young Donald to channel his competitive nature into achievement, and he eventually rose to become a student leader within the academy. After graduating in 1964, Trump enrolled at Fordham University in the Bronx, attending for 2 years before making a pivotal academic move. He transferred to the prestigious Wharton School of Finance at the University of Pennsylvania, one of the most respected business programs in the entire country. At Wharton, Trump immersed himself in economics and real estate studies, graduating in 1968 with a bachelor's degree in economics. This elite education would soon become a cornerstone of his professional identity and business confidence. With his education behind him, Donald Trump wasted no time diving headfirst into the world of real estate. In the early 1970s, he joined his father, Fred's company, then known as Elizabeth Trump and Son, a well-established firm primarily focused on middle-class rental properties in Brooklyn and Queens. But Donald had far bigger ambitions than managing modest apartment complexes in the outer boroughs. From the moment he stepped through the door, he set his sights firmly on Manhattan, the most competitive and glamorous real estate market in the world. He convinced his father to let him take the reins and began aggressively pursuing deals that Fred would have considered far too risky. Donald's instincts were bold, calculated, and relentless. He networked tirelessly, studied the Manhattan landscape obsessively, and positioned himself as a young developer ready to make serious waves. His aggressive hunger for success was unmistakable right from the very beginning. With his instincts sharpened and his ambitions fully unleashed, Donald Trump set his sights on projects that would put his own name on the map, literally. One of his earliest and most defining moves was the renovation of the Commodore Hotel in Midtown Manhattan during the late 1970s. The once grand hotel had fallen into serious disrepair, but Trump saw enormous potential where others saw only risk. Partnering with the Hyatt Corporation and securing significant tax abatements from New York City, he transformed it into the sleek Grand Hyatt Hotel, a stunning achievement for a young developer. Then came Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, completed in 1983. Rising 58 floors above one of the world's most prestigious streets, It became an instant symbol of luxury and ambition. These two landmark projects announced to New York City and the world that Donald Trump was not just his father's son, he was a force entirely his own. Building on his early real estate triumphs, Trump transformed himself into something far beyond a developer during the 1980s. He expanded aggressively into Atlantic City, opening Trump Plaza Casino in 1984, followed by Trump's Castle and the massive Trump Taj Mahal. These glittering gambling palaces made him a dominant force in the entertainment and hospitality world. He also acquired trophy properties like the Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida and the Plaza Hotel in New York City, each purchase generating enormous media attention. Trump became the living embodiment of 1980s excess, his name synonymous with gold, glamour, and unapologetic ambition. His face appeared on magazine covers regularly, and tabloids tracked his every move. Then, in 1987, he published The Art of the Deal, a business memoir that rocketed to the top of bestseller lists nationwide. The book cemented his public persona as the ultimate deal-maker, introducing millions of Americans to the larger-than-life character named Donald Trump. But the empire Trump built through the 80s was not invincible. By the early 1990s, the cracks became impossible to ignore. His Atlantic City casinos, including the Trump Taj Mahal, were drowning in hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. Overexpansion, high interest rates, and a slowing economy created a perfect financial storm. Trump faced multiple corporate bankruptcies, filing for Chapter 11 protection on several of his business entities. These were not personal bankruptcies, but they were deeply damaging to his reputation and finances. Banks and creditors were forced to restructure enormous loans just to recover what they could. Trump negotiated aggressively, surrendering assets while retaining control of his core brand. Critics declared his career finished. Yet through relentless self-promotion, strategic deal-making, and sheer determination, Trump slowly clawed his way back, proving that his most valuable asset was never a building, but the name attached to it. After weathering the financial storms of the early 1990s, Donald Trump embarked on a remarkable reinvention. Rather than retreating from the public eye, he leaned into his celebrity persona, making cameo appearances in films and television throughout the late 1990s. He became a fixture in popular culture, carefully rebuilding his image as the ultimate symbol of success and ambition. Then came the moment that would transform everything. On January 8, 2004, The Apprentice premiered on NBC, with Trump at the helm as the ultimate boss. Each week, millions of Americans tuned in to watch contestants compete for a coveted position within the Trump organization. His signature phrase, "You're fired," became a cultural phenomenon almost overnight. The show ran for 14 seasons, reaching an audience of over 20 million viewers at its peak. This television platform gave Trump something money alone could never buy: a direct, weekly connection to ordinary American households, dramatically amplifying his national brand and popularity. Long before Trump ever filed official campaign paperwork, politics had already caught his attention. In 1999, he briefly explored a presidential run under the Reform Party, testing the waters before ultimately stepping back. It was an early sign that his ambitions extended far beyond real estate and television. Over the following years, Trump's political voice grew louder and more defined. He spoke bluntly about what he saw as America's weakening position in global trade, arguing that countries like China were taking advantage of the United States. He criticized immigration policies he believed were harming American workers and communities. Through media appearances, interviews, and public statements, Trump began attracting an audience that felt unheard by traditional politicians. His unfiltered style resonated with people frustrated by Washington's establishment. Slowly but steadily, he was building something far more powerful than a brand. He was building a political following. Building on his growing political voice, Trump made a calculated and deeply controversial move in 2011. He became the most prominent public figure pushing the so-called birther movement, repeatedly and loudly questioning whether President Barack Obama was actually born in the United States. Trump demanded Obama release his birth certificate, making the claim a central talking point across television appearances and social media. The mainstream response was swift and harsh, with critics condemning the effort as racially motivated and factually baseless. Obama eventually released his long-form birth certificate, effectively ending the debate. However, the damage and the opportunity were already done. Among a significant segment of conservative voters who harbored deep skepticism toward Obama, Trump became a hero. His willingness to say what others would not gave him a powerful political identity. This moment quietly but unmistakably planted the seeds for something far larger on the horizon. On June 16, 2015, Donald Trump made one of the most memorable entrances in political history. Descending the golden escalator at Trump Tower in New York City alongside his wife Melania, he formally announced his candidacy for President of the United States. The media initially responded with a mixture of amusement and disbelief, with many journalists and political analysts dismissing his campaign as a publicity stunt rather than a serious political bid. However, what immediately captured national attention were his controversial remarks about immigration, where he described undocumented Mexican immigrants in deeply inflammatory terms, sparking immediate outrage, but also fierce enthusiasm among a segment of voters who felt unheard by establishment politicians. With 17 candidates crowding the Republican primary field, including seasoned governors and senators, Trump's unfiltered, bombastic style stood in stark contrast to traditional political decorum. His willingness to say what others would not instantly distinguished him from every other candidate on the stage. Entering the Republican primaries, Trump faced 17 experienced opponents, including seasoned senators and governors. Yet he systematically dismantled each one, using a campaign style unlike anything American politics had seen before. His rallies became cultural phenomena, drawing tens of thousands of passionate supporters in arenas across the country. These events were raw, energetic, and deeply personal, creating a sense of movement rather than a traditional campaign. On social media, particularly Twitter, Trump bypassed mainstream media entirely, speaking directly to millions of followers with unfiltered messages that generated constant headlines. His provocative rhetoric, targeting rivals with memorable nicknames like Little Marco and Lion Ted, dominated news cycles and kept him perpetually in the spotlight. By the time the primaries concluded in the spring of 2016, Trump had secured the Republican nomination, defeating politicians with far greater experience and far larger traditional campaign budgets, fundamentally rewriting the rules of American political campaigning. The general election between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton became one of the most turbulent campaigns in American political history. 3 explosive presidential debates captivated tens of millions of viewers, with Trump's aggressive, unconventional style clashing sharply against Clinton's polished experience. Then in October 2016, the Access Hollywood tape emerged, featuring Trump making deeply offensive comments about women. Many predicted his campaign was finished. But just days later, FBI Director James Comey announced a renewed investigation into Clinton's private email server, dramatically shifting the national conversation. Trump's rallies grew louder and more passionate, drawing enormous crowds across forgotten industrial towns and rural communities. His message of economic nationalism and anti-establishment fury resonated deeply with millions of Americans who felt ignored by Washington. The country felt electrically divided, anxious, and uncertain. As Election Day approached, pollsters overwhelmingly favored Clinton, yet something extraordinary was quietly building beneath the surface. As the clock ticked past midnight on November 8, 2016, something extraordinary unfolded across America. State after state flashed red on electoral maps, and the unthinkable became reality. Donald Trump was winning the presidency. Nearly every major poll had predicted a comfortable Hillary Clinton victory. News anchors sat speechless. Political analysts scrambled for explanations. Across the country, reactions split dramatically. Trump supporters erupted in celebration at rallies and watch parties, tears streaming down their faces, chanting his name with overwhelming emotion. Trump secured 280 electoral votes, surpassing the required 270, flipping crucial battleground states including Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, the so-called blue wall that Democrats had relied upon for decades. For his supporters, this victory represented something profound. It was a rejection of Washington's political establishment, a cry from working-class Americans who felt forgotten. For others, it signaled a seismic, deeply unsettling shift in America's political identity. On January 20th, 2017, Donald Trump was inaugurated as the 45th President of the United States. Standing on the steps of the Capitol, he delivered a fiery speech promising an America First agenda, signaling an immediate departure from political norms. Within days, Trump signed a wave of executive orders targeting immigration, trade, and regulatory rollbacks. He withdrew the United States from the Trans-Pacific Partnership and moved to renegotiate the North American Free Trade Agreement. But controversy erupted almost instantly. Press Secretary Sean Spicer clashed with media over inauguration crowd sizes, sparking fierce public debate about honesty in the new administration. Then came the travel ban, an executive order restricting entry from several Muslim-majority countries. Courts immediately challenged it. Protests erupted at airports nationwide, and the legal battles dominated headlines for months, setting the combative tone that would define Trump's entire first term. Once in office, Trump moved aggressively on his policy agenda. His signature legislative achievement came in December 2017, when he signed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act into law, slashing corporate tax rates from 35% to 21%. Supporters called it a historic economic boost, while critics argued it overwhelmingly benefited the wealthy. On the foreign policy front, Trump took an unconventional approach, engaging in direct diplomacy with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, holding unprecedented summits that captivated the world. He simultaneously pressured NATO allies to increase their defense spending, straining decades-old alliances. His administration launched an aggressive trade war with China, imposing billions of dollars worth of tariffs. Meanwhile, Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election loomed over his presidency, creating constant political turbulence and deepening the already severe partisan divide gripping the nation. By late 2019, Trump's presidency reached a dramatic turning point. In December of that year, the House of Representatives voted to impeach him on 2 articles, abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. The charges stemmed from allegations that Trump pressured Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to investigate political rival Joe Biden in exchange for military aid. Democrats argued this was a clear misuse of presidential authority. Republicans largely dismissed the proceedings as a partisan attack. In February 2020, the Republican-controlled Senate acquitted Trump on both counts, with only one Republican senator breaking ranks. Rather than calming tensions, the entire impeachment saga deepened America's already severe political divisions. Trust in institutions eroded further, and the national conversation grew increasingly hostile. The acquittal emboldened Trump's base while galvanizing his opponents, creating a charged atmosphere that would define the upcoming 2020 presidential election as one of the most bitterly contested in American history. 2020 proved to be one of the most chaotic years in modern American history, and Trump stood at the center of it all. When COVID-19 swept across the United States, his administration's response drew fierce criticism, with opponents accusing him of downplaying the virus's severity, while supporters praised his fast-tracking of vaccine development through Operation Warp Speed. Then came the nationwide racial justice protests following the death of George Floyd, further deepening America's divisions. Despite the turmoil, Trump launched an aggressive re-election campaign against Democratic nominee Joe Biden. When election night arrived in November 2020, Biden was declared the winner. Trump refused to concede, claiming widespread voter fraud without substantial evidence. His legal team filed dozens of court challenges, nearly all of which failed. Weeks of mounting tension followed as Trump continued rallying supporters around his stolen election narrative, setting the stage for the catastrophic events of January 6, 2021. On January 6, 2021, a mob of Trump supporters stormed the United States Capitol, disrupting the certification of Joe Biden's electoral victory. The violent siege shocked the nation and the world. Days later, the House of Representatives impeached Trump for incitement of insurrection, making him the first president impeached twice. The Senate ultimately acquitted him, with the majority of Republican senators voting in his favor. Trump departed the White House on January 20, 2021, skipping Biden's inauguration entirely. Rather than fading into political obscurity, Trump remained a dominant force within the Republican Party, endorsing candidates, hosting rallies, and teasing another presidential run. He faced mounting legal battles, including federal indictments related to classified documents and election interference. Despite these challenges, his grip on the Republican base never weakened, proving his extraordinary and unprecedented influence over American political life continued long after leaving office. Against all odds, Donald Trump mounted one of the most remarkable political comebacks in American history. Securing the 2024 Republican nomination with overwhelming support, he went on to defeat his Democratic opponent in the general election, becoming the 47th President of the United States. This extraordinary achievement made him only the second president in history to serve non-consecutive terms, following Grover Cleveland's precedent set over a century ago. From a wealthy kid in Queens to a real estate titan, from a reality television star to a two-term president, Trump's journey defies every conventional political playbook ever written. Love him or despise him, his impact on American politics is undeniable and permanent. He reshaped the Republican Party, redefined political communication, and mobilized millions of Americans who felt forgotten by Washington. Donald Trump's story remains one of the most extraordinary, controversial, and consequential chapters in modern American political history.